As I talked about a couple weeks ago, a mesh network is the best home Wi-Fi solution. The setup is usually effortless, and the network is expandable, which makes covering your whole home with top-tier Wi-Fi simpler, without having to constantly switch Wi-Fi networks. Instead, a mesh network will intelligently connect you to whichever node will give you the best performance. Today, we will take a look at an example mesh network in detail with the Linksys Velop. So, let's get into it. Throughout the unboxing and overview, I refer to each of these towers as satellites. Technically, they're called nodes. However, I think satellite is a more consumer-friendly way to look at them. I'll explain more on that later. So let's get to the unboxing. Inside, this is a 2-tower setup. So we have tower number 1 and tower number 2. So both of these are basically full wireless routers on their own. They can operate independently. And this is a 2-pack set. They also make one with 3 towers or 3 satellites in a box, but you can always add on more as you need them. So if you have a massive house, you may need more than 2 or 3. You may want to add 4 or 5. But it's very important not to add more than you actually need. The more satellites you add, it will cause more interference and can actually even bring your internet connection down. So with that, for my house, 2 towers will do the job just fine. In here, along with the 2 towers, we have our setup guide, which we'll take a look at it in a minute, some documentation, and the power adapters for both of these satellites. These things are massive. These are a lot bigger than I had expected. So each of these both have their own dedicated power. So let's take a closer look at each of these satellites. So since they're both the same, I'm just going to go over one. So we have this like meshy cool side on the top and the bottom for ventilation, which is really nice. Let's go and do the peel. Very clean white finish. So hopefully this will provide enough cooling. At the bottom, you have your 2 Ethernet ports. One of these ports is used to plug into your internet, so the tower itself can get an internet connection. And then you can use the other Ethernet port to plug into, say, your computer. So your computer would have a direct line to the internet without having to worry about wireless. Also under here, you have your power outlet, the 12-volt DC power, a reset button, and an on-off switch. And then you have your serial number, MAC address, and Wi-Fi setup information, and so on. So everything is hidden. This tower will just sit out in the open quietly without too much pop to it. I know there's some higher end routers especially that have like multiple antennas off the edge and they're lighting up. No, this is a clean, nice little white tower that you can sit in the corner of your room and you won't notice anything. This tower is the same thing. And as I said, you need more satellites. If you find you have 2 set up on opposite sides of your house and it still doesn't cover the middle of your house perfectly, you can get a 3rd one to put in the middle of your house. And as you travel from one side of the house to the other, your device will automatically jump between these satellites. And for this example, for now, I'm just going to set these 2 towers up here and configured. And for now, I'm going to go ahead and get this all powered up. So we're going to plug the power cable in here. Oh, look, that has a nice little curve to it too. So that goes in here like that. And the cable already has a nice little curve in it. Okay, and then let's get it some power. And with that, we have the light on. So now let's go through these setups. So for this, you're going to need the Linksys app that you can download on your iPad, iPhone, Android, anywhere. So we're going to hop over to the App Store and you see this blue lights illuminating up here. So that means that we are all powered on. So let's look for Linksys and install that there. And then it says just follow the setup directions. As easy as that. Let's see if it's truly that easy. All right, it's been downloaded. We have to go this way. Okay, Linksys would like on your network. Okay, so it needs to see devices on my network. I'll say okay to notifications for now. And now, so since this is a new Wi-Fi network, I'm going to click set up a new Wi-Fi network. Now that the setup is loaded, I need to choose which type of network I'm trying to set up. So I'm going to choose a Velop Linksys Intelligent Mesh network, so that's what I'm doing here. But they have some other options here based on some of their other router options. So we get on to step one, which is plugging in a node. So this is going to be the parent node over here. I've already got it plugged into power, so I'm going to click next. Now, we want to remember to place this node out in the open somewhere, not in a closed-in room or in a shelf or somewhere like that. You want to keep it open where it can broadcast without anything being in the way. So yes, it's in an open spot. So next we need to connect our parent node to an internet source. In most cases, you're probably going to want to go from your modem directly to your parent node. In this case, this is a cable modem. So this is the device that pulls the internet signal out of the coax cable that comes in from your cable provider. You'll have the same sort of thing if you have a fiber connection, but this is for cable. So you will plug your Ethernet into here and the other side into your parent node. Now, since I'm setting this up in a test environment, I'm not going to plug it into a modem directly. I'm actually just going to plug it into my internet, and it'll just end up being another device on the network. So I'm going to plug it into one of the Ethernet ports down here in the bottom. Snaps in, use the nice little cable management there, and it is all ready to be connected to the internet. So we're going to continue following the steps and say, yes, it is connected. So it's going to wake up the node. Alrighty, now that the node is connected, we should see that's blinking purple. Alrighty, so I've signed into my Linksys account, and if you don't have one, you can create an account, and now it's linking this node to my account. I can actually feel it, it's already getting warm. It's definitely going to need those extra ventilation holes on either side. So now that it's set up, it's found, it's been added to my Linksys account. Now we need to give it a Wi-Fi name. And all this I'm going to change later. So I'm just creating a test network here just so we could put it together, play with it. And there we go. It looks like it's done. Finish loading here. Cool. Now we need to tell it where it's at. But in this case, I'm going to say something else. I'm going to call this parent node. Instead of naming it by its location, I'm just going to say it's a parent node. Alrighty. And the parent node is all set up and ready to go. So let's go next. And now let's add a child to it. And now we get to the point where we need to figure out the best place to put a child node. And to do that, you need to know how the child connects to the parent. Here's how it works. The child just connects to the parent's Wi-Fi broadcast. So the parent is broadcasting a Wi-Fi signal and devices are connecting to it, like your iPhone, your iPad, your laptop, whatever, they're connecting to this. The child nodes are going to connect to the parent in just the same way. The only difference is that the child will rebroadcast the signal it's getting from the parent. The trick is this, though, can only rebroadcast as much as it's receiving. For instance, if you have your parent router here and you have obstacles and distance built up between the parent and the child, that means a child unit may only be able to receive around 50 megabits per second compared to your full network's capability of 100 megabits per second, for instance. That means if this is only receiving 50 megabits per second, it can only rebroadcast 50 megabits per second, which is half of what your whole network is capable of. So you have to find a middle spot, a spot that's not right next to it in that they're just going to overlap and it's not going to push the signal further that way. So you don't want to keep them too close, but you want to put it into a spot where the child can easily communicate with the parent while at the same time broadcasting further that way. But if you want to avoid that whole situation of having to deal with this, rebroadcasting what this is, and then you have to deal with unreliable Wi-Fi connections, this and that. I always recommend, if you have the option to plug your device into the internet, take advantage of it. Pull out an Ethernet cable, run some cables through your house. If you have a laptop, a desktop, or something that has the option to be plugged directly into the internet, take advantage of it, because then it'll give you more wireless bandwidth for all your mobile devices, like your iPhones, your smartwatches, your laptops, the devices that you want to use while you're on the go. But you know, your desktop or your desk where you set your laptop down, those places may not need a Wi-Fi when you could use a wired connection. So in this case, in my house, we'll be using a wired connection. But in the meantime, since they're right next to each other and for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to continue as it is. But that's what you want to think of when you're setting up a mesh network. You want to remember that the child needs to communicate with the parent. So if you're standing somewhere and your phone can't communicate with the parent, then that's how you know that this isn't going to be in a good spot. So let's go ahead and click next and continue here. First, we need to give our node some power. So we're going to plug in the 12 volt DC power there, and it's going to automatically boot up for us. So we can click next that the node has been plugged in. It's going to take about 3 minutes to wake up. And since these are both full routers, so this node is no different in any way than the parent. The children are always the same as the parent. So that means that you can swap these out. You can add more children. So if you have a dead spot in the middle of your house, or you have one child on one side of the house and the parent on the other side of the house, and you have a dead zone in the middle, you can introduce a new child into the middle of your house, and so on. I mean, you can throw in as many nodes as you want, or as many children as you want. But the trick is you don't want to add in too many children, because the more children you add, the more wireless networks are broadcasting over top of each other, and it can actually bring down your connection, believe it or not. So only add what you need. Don't add more than you need. Don't overcompensate for dead areas. Just make sure that they're each filled perfectly, fulfilling that room's needs. Alrighty, and with that, the child has been found. The light is blinking purple, so that means we can continue to the next step of adding the child to the parent through the adoption process, which could take about 6 minutes, it says. So what it's basically doing now is all the settings and configuration that we set up with a parent is now being copied to the child. So this will have the same exact settings as the parent does. During the setup of the child node, I ran into some issues. For some reason, the app said that the child node was unsuccessfully configured, so it gave me a workaround to connecting to the child node's Wi-Fi network, which also failed, so I canceled the setup process of adding a child, only to realize it was added. I'm not quite sure what happened here. I know I reset the node's to factory settings a couple of times, which could have caused conflicts. Anyways, it's working now. Now the basics of my mesh network are up and running, and not much more needs to be done. I had the parent node connected to my cable modem, I successfully added a child node, and configured my main Wi-Fi network. I could stop here, or you can join me in our next video where we will take an in-depth look at the Linksys app and all the advanced settings that can be configured, like managing connected devices, prioritizing devices, adding another child, and more. Hope to see you there. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know what Wi-Fi system you're currently using in the comments. Check out the links in the description to learn more about mesh networks and other Wi-Fi solutions. Follow Apple Guide Web on social media and check out our Patreon, where you can directly support the channel. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.